I moved the money this morning. I stopped halfway through the kitchen doorway. What did you just say? If you've ever watched Betrayal hide behind a smile before the truth finally won, subscribe to The Last Receipt, because this was only the beginning. My wife, Melissa, sipped her coffee as though she'd commented on the weather. I emptied our accounts. The mug nearly slipped from my hand. Stop joking. I'm not. I walked straight to the kitchen island. What accounts? All of them. No. Yes. Our checking? Gone. Our savings? Gone. The emergency fund? She nodded once. Every dollar. I laughed. It sounded hollow. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to check. I pulled out my phone. The banking app took forever to load. Or maybe my hands were shaking too much to tap the screen correctly. The kitchen suddenly felt colder. The granite countertop pressed against my palms. Finally. The balance appeared. Checking. 82 cents. Savings. $4.16. Vacation account. Closed. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. No. I refreshed the screen. Same numbers. Again. Nothing changed. Melissa watched quietly. I told you. I looked up. Why? Because I'm done. Done with what? This marriage. You emptied 23 years of savings. I took what belonged to me. Everything belonged to both of us. She shrugged. Not anymore. My throat tightened. When were you planning to tell me? I just did. You couldn't even wait until I sat down. I didn't think that mattered. I stared at the woman I'd spent nearly half my life with. The woman who used to leave notes in my lunchbox. The woman who cried when we bought our first house. She looked like Melissa. She sounded like a stranger. I don't understand. You don't have to. I deserve an explanation. You'll get one. When? When my attorney contacts yours. I blinked. Attorney? I'm filing for divorce. Those words landed harder than the empty account balances. How long have you planned this? She smiled politely. Long enough. I opened the banking app again. One notification caught my eye. Transfer failed. Authorization required. I frowned. What is this? Melissa looked away for the first time. What? This failed transfer. It doesn't matter. It mattered enough to fail. It was probably a system error. I tapped the details. The amount was enormous. Almost $300,000. Destination account. Pending. Status. Rejected. Reason. Additional authorization required. My heartbeat slowed. Just a little. One transaction hadn't gone through. Melissa noticed me reading. Close the app. Why? Because you're only making this harder. I looked directly at her. Harder for who? She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her purse. I'll be staying with my sister. You think you can drain our life savings and walk out? I already did. She moved toward the front door. Melissa. She stopped. I loved you. I know. When did that stop mattering? She kept her back toward me. A long time ago. The front door closed softly behind her. Silence filled the house. I stood alone in the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed quietly. Somewhere outside, a lawn mower started. Ordinary sounds. An ordinary afternoon. Nothing about my life felt ordinary anymore. I sat at the kitchen table. My wedding band tapped softly against the wood. My father used to tell me something. When panic shows up, paperwork comes first. I reached for my phone. Voice recorder. Record. My name is Daniel Carter. I swallowed. The date is June 14th. My wife informed me approximately 10 minutes ago that she transferred nearly all funds from our joint accounts. I have just confirmed the balances. I did not authorize these transfers. I am recording this while events are fresh. I ended the recording. Then emailed it to myself. And to my attorney. Robert Ellis. Subject line. Urgent. Preserve immediately. Send. One step. I reopened the banking app. Screenshot. Checking account. Screenshot. Savings. Screenshot. Failed transfer. Screenshot. Transaction history. Screenshot. Every image went into a new folder labeled Financial Evidence. Then I enabled instant fraud alerts. Every withdrawal. Every transfer. Every login. Every address change. If anyone touched another account, I'd know. My breathing finally slowed. 3 actions. 3 records. 3 chances to protect what remained. I leaned back. Not defeated. Preparing. The phone rang. My younger sister, Emily. Daniel? Hi. Melissa called. Of course she had. What did she tell you? She said you finally admitted the marriage was over. I didn't. She said you controlled all the money. I stared across the empty dining room. I paid the bills. That's different. I never stopped her from spending. She sounded hurt. I just found out our accounts are empty. Silence. What? They're empty. She transferred everything. Emily hesitated. She told me she only took her half. I wish that were true. You aren't exaggerating. You know me better than that. Another pause. I don't know what to think. You don't have to decide today. She sighed. I'll call you tomorrow. The line disconnected. One conversation. One doubt. The story was already spreading. I opened my email. Robert had already replied. Don't contact her further. Save everything. I'm requesting records immediately. Call me in 1 hour. I smiled faintly. Someone was moving as quickly as I was. An hour later my phone rang again. Daniel. Robert. I reviewed the screenshots. And? You did the right thing. What does the failed transfer mean? I don't know yet. But it matters. Very much. He paused. Don't assume the money is gone forever. You really think that? I've handled divorce cases for 30 years. And? People who rush often miss something. I looked again at the rejected transfer. Authorization required. What should I do now? Nothing emotional. I wasn't planning to. Good. Continue documenting. I've started a folder. Excellent. And Daniel. Yes? Forward every email she sends. I will. Every text. I will. No phone arguments. I understand. We ended the call. For the first time since Melissa walked out. I felt like someone had switched on a small light inside a dark room. Around 6 that evening, my neighbor Mark knocked on the front door. I heard. That was fast. Melissa stopped by. I figured. He stepped inside awkwardly. She says things have been bad for years. I closed the door. Did she? She says she finally escaped. I nodded slowly. What do you think? Mark rubbed the back of his neck. I honestly don't know. I appreciate the honesty. She looked pretty upset. So did my bank account. He gave a nervous laugh. Then noticed I wasn't joking. I'm sorry. Did she mention emptying every account? He frowned. No. Did she mention the failed transfer? What failed transfer? Exactly. He looked at me for a long moment. I should probably hear both sides. I think you just did. He left quietly. Not convinced. Not accusing. Just uncertain. That was enough for now. Later that night I couldn't sleep. The house smelled faintly of Melissa's lavender candle. She always lit it before bed. The scent drifted through the hallway. It felt like a ghost refusing to leave. At 11:30, my phone buzzed. Fraud alert. Attempted login from new device. I immediately changed every password. Bank. Email. Cloud storage. Investment accounts. Then enabled two-factor authentication. Next. I downloaded every bank statement from the previous 2 years. Zip file. Backup drive. Cloud storage. 3 copies. No one was deleting anything. As I worked, another email arrived. From Melissa. Only one sentence. You should accept this before attorneys make it expensive. No greeting. No explanation. No apology. I forwarded it directly to Robert without replying. Evidence. Nothing else. Just after midnight I looked once more at the failed transfer. Everything else had cleared. That one hadn't. The amount remained frozen. Pending. Waiting. I whispered to myself. You missed something. I didn't know what. I didn't know why. But somewhere inside that rejected transaction, there was a mistake. And after 23 years of marriage, my wife had just made the first mistake that wasn't in her favor. The next morning my phone rang before sunrise. Daniel? Mr. Carter? Speaking. This is Laura Mitchell from First National Bank. My stomach tightened. Yes? I understand you've activated fraud monitoring. I did. We've placed temporary safeguards on your remaining accounts. Thank you. There are a few questions we'd like to ask. I'm listening. Could you come in this morning? I'll be there. By 8:30 I was sitting across from Laura in a glass office overlooking the lobby. People walked in carrying coffee. Parents opened children's savings accounts. An elderly couple laughed over paperwork. Life moved normally around me. Laura folded her hands. I'm very sorry you're going through this. So am I. She opened a folder. We've confirmed multiple transfers. I saw them. Most were authorized online. I didn't authorize them. I understand. She turned another page. One transaction didn't complete. I noticed. She looked directly at me. It wasn't rejected because of the amount. It wasn't? She shook her head. It required an additional signature. My heartbeat slowed. Whose? I'm not allowed to discuss every detail until legal requests arrive. But it matters. Yes. Very much. She closed the folder. I recommend allowing your attorney to handle the next steps. I already contacted him. She smiled. Good. Before I left, she handed me printed transaction logs. I shouldn't have to ask for these later. No. You were smart to come in early. I thanked her. As I walked toward the parking lot, I scanned every page. Time stamps. IP logins. Transfer amounts. Every line became another piece of evidence. I photographed each page. Then uploaded the images to my cloud storage before even starting the car. Nothing would disappear. Halfway home, Robert called. "You've already been to the bank." "How did you know?" "They sent me a courtesy notice." "And?" "They're cooperating. They mentioned a missing signature." "I was hoping they would." "You know something." "I know enough not to guess." I smiled despite everything. "You sound optimistic." "I sound patient." "What should I do now?" "Save every document." "I already scanned them." "Excellent." "And Daniel?" "Yes?" "Don't let Melissa convince you this is normal." "I wasn't planning to." "Good." He hung up. When I pulled into the driveway, Melissa's SUV wasn't there. Neither were the flower pots she'd always kept by the porch. She'd taken them too. The front door opened before I reached it. My brother-in-law, Kevin, stepped outside. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk." "Do we?" He folded his arms. "You've made this ugly." "I emptied our accounts." "You know what I mean." "No. Melissa says you forced her." I stared at him. "Forced her to transfer money?" "She says she had no choice." "I'd love to hear the explanation." "She says you controlled every dollar." "I paid the mortgage." "You gave her allowances." I laughed. "Allowances?" "That's what she called them. I transferred $5,000 into her personal account every month." He frowned. "She didn't tell me that." "I imagine she left out quite a few things." Kevin looked uncomfortable. "She seemed terrified." "Did she mention buying a new SUV 6 months ago?" "No." "The beach house vacation?" "No." "The jewelry?" "No." I approved every purchase. He stayed quiet. "I never told her no." Kevin rubbed his forehead. "I don't know who to believe." "You don't have to." "What?" "The bank records will decide." He looked at me carefully. "What bank records?" "The ones attorneys can't edit." He didn't answer. Instead he sighed. "I just don't want this getting worse." "It already did." He nodded slowly. "I'll talk to her again." After he left, I walked inside. The house echoed. Closets were half empty. Picture frames had disappeared from the hallway. She hadn't only emptied the accounts. She'd begun erasing the marriage. I climbed the stairs. Our bedroom looked unfamiliar. Half the closet stood empty. The scent of her perfume still lingered in the air. For one painful moment, I remembered the day we moved into this house. Melissa had spun around laughing. "I finally have a walk-in closet." I smiled at the memory. Then looked at the empty hangers. Some losses aren't measured in dollars. Around noon my phone buzzed. "Melissa." I answered. "What?" "You met with the bank." "Yes." "You shouldn't have done that." "I shouldn't have protected myself." "It makes you look vindictive." "I think emptying the accounts did that." She sighed dramatically. "There you go again." "Again?" "Making everything about money." I almost laughed. "You transferred our life savings. You always cared about numbers." "No. I cared about trust." She lowered her voice. "If you stop fighting." "I'm not fighting. We can settle this privately. I've already hired an attorney." Her tone changed. "You really want strangers involved?" "I didn't invite them." You'll regret this. Will I? I've told everyone how controlling you've been. I stayed silent. You'll be alone. My bank statements don't have opinions. She hung up. I placed the phone on the kitchen table. There it was. Another tactic. Not insults. Not fake kindness. A quiet threat. She wasn't defending herself anymore. She was trying to isolate me. An hour later, Emily came over. She carried 2 grocery bags. I thought you probably hadn't eaten. I haven't. She placed soup on the counter. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. I spoke to Melissa again. And? I asked about the accounts. I waited. She became defensive. Did she? She wouldn't answer directly. Emily sat down. Can I ask you something? Always. Did you ever stop her from buying something she wanted? I thought for a second. No. Not once. We argued about plenty of things. But money? No. Emily looked out the window. That's not the story she's telling. I know. She reached across the table. I defended her yesterday. I know. I don't think I can today. I smiled faintly. You don't have to defend anyone. I just want the truth. So do I. After lunch, she helped me sort paperwork. Bank statements. Tax returns. Investment reports. She noticed something first. Daniel. What? Look at this. I leaned closer. Every large transfer happened within 27 minutes. That's fast. Too fast. Emily pointed again. Who moves money that quickly? Someone afraid they'll be stopped. I immediately highlighted every transfer time. Then added them to my evidence timeline. Another detail preserved. That evening Robert arrived at my house. He spread documents across the dining room table. I've reviewed everything. And? Melissa prepared this carefully. I figured. But. I smiled. There's always a but. There is. He tapped one transfer. This one froze. I know. The reason matters. You still won't tell me? He looked toward the window. I'd rather confirm it first. So you're protecting the investigation. I'm protecting your advantage. I nodded. I can live with that. He gathered several papers. I'll also need every email from the last 6 months. I've already downloaded them. He smiled. I expected you had. And text messages. Backed up. Cloud storage. Twice. Robert laughed softly. I've represented you for 15 years. You taught me to prepare. I did. Before leaving, he stopped at the door. One more thing. What? Melissa's attorney contacted me. So soon? Yes. What did he want? He proposed a quick settlement. I frowned. Already? Immediately. Why? Robert smiled for the first time all day. People rarely rush unless they're worried about something. That sentence stayed with me long after he drove away. Later that night another email arrived from Melissa. You're embarrassing yourself. Just sign the settlement. Attached was a draft agreement. I opened it. Page after page gave her nearly everything. The house. Most investments. Retirement accounts. Vehicles. Then I reached the final page. A signature line. Only hers was completed. Mine remained blank. I quietly saved the document. Downloaded the metadata. Forwarded it to Robert. Then archived another copy. As I closed my laptop, I looked once more at the frozen transfer. Everything Melissa had done seemed carefully planned. Every conversation. Every accusation. Every transfer. Yet one thing refused to move. One signature. One legal requirement. One mistake. And somewhere behind that single missing signature, the entire plan was beginning to crack. 3 days later, Robert called before breakfast. "Daniel. You found something." "I did." I sat down immediately. "What is it?" "Remember the failed transfer?" "I haven't stopped thinking about it. There was a reason it failed. I knew there had to be." Robert paused. "That investment account was created before your marriage." "It was. You inherited it from your grandfather." "I remember. When you added Melissa years later." "Yes. You specifically required dual signatures for any transfer over $200,000. I closed my eyes. I forgot that. She didn't know." A slow breath escaped my chest. "So she transferred everything else, but missed the only account she couldn't move alone." I looked toward the dining room window. Morning sunlight spread across the backyard. For the first time in days. It didn't feel cold. "What happens now?" "Now we preserve every document. I've already backed everything up." "I know. I've also downloaded the settlement she sent." "Good. And the metadata." Robert laughed quietly. "You're making my job easier. I learned from the best." He became serious again. "Melissa forged several electronic approvals." My stomach tightened. "But she couldn't forge that final authorization." "Why?" "Because your original signature card requires wet ink." I smiled. One signature. One overlooked detail. One mistake. The foundation beneath her plan had just cracked. After hanging up, I made another folder. Dual signature account. Inside it went every statement. Every transfer notice. Every screenshot. Then I wrote one sentence in my notebook. "Never underestimate old paperwork." Around noon, my phone rang again. Laura Mitchell. "Mr. Carter." "Hello. I've received permission to share limited information." "I'm listening." "The transfer request is frozen indefinitely." "For how long?" "Until both account holders appear." I frowned. "Both? You and Mrs. Carter?" "I don't think she'll volunteer." Laura hesitated. "Probably not." "Can anyone override it?" "No." "Can electronic signatures complete it?" "No." "What about powers of attorney?" "Not without judicial review." I thanked her. Then smiled after ending the call. Melissa hadn't just missed a signature. She'd run into a wall the bank refused to move. That afternoon Emily came by again. "You look different." "I feel different." "What happened?" I handed her the transaction report. She read quietly. So, she can't access this money?" "No." "Without you?" "No." Emily slowly lowered the papers. She really thought she'd emptied everything. She almost did. She looked at me carefully. "Are you feeling hopeful?" I nodded. Cautiously. She smiled. "I've missed seeing that." As she stood to leave, she stopped. "I owe you something." "You don't owe me anything." I defended Melissa. "I know. I should have asked questions instead." "You are now." She hugged me. Then quietly walked out. Later that evening another knock came at the door. It was Kevin. He looked exhausted. Can we talk? Sure. He remained standing. I confronted Melissa. And? I asked why one transfer failed. I stayed silent. She got angry. What did she say? She claimed the bank was incompetent. I almost laughed. Anything else? She refused to explain. Kevin sighed. That bothered me. I nodded. It should. He looked uncomfortable. I asked whether she really took only half. And? She changed the subject. Neither of us spoke. Finally he asked. Can I see something? I handed him the transaction summary. He studied it carefully. His eyebrows slowly lifted. Daniel. What? These aren't half. I know. They're almost everything. I know. Kevin looked genuinely stunned. She never told me this. I didn't think she had. He sat down heavily. I've been defending her. You defended the person you believed. I don't know who that is anymore. I poured him a cup of coffee. He stared into it for a long time. I think she lied to me. I answered quietly. I think she's lying to everyone. Before leaving he said something unexpected. If this goes to court. I looked up. I'll tell the truth. That was enough. Not victory. Movement. That night Robert emailed me another document. Subject. Internal Authorization Review. Inside was a memo from the bank. One sentence was highlighted. Secondary signature absent. Transaction suspended automatically. I printed 3 copies. One for Robert. One for my files. One for a fireproof safe. Then I scanned it again. Redundancy felt comforting now. The following morning Melissa called unexpectedly. You've been talking to people. I have. You turned Kevin against me. I showed him bank statements. You manipulated him. I showed him numbers. She took a sharp breath. You always hide behind paperwork. I prefer paperwork to rumors. You think you're smarter than everyone. No. I think records remember better than people. Silence. Then her voice softened. Another tactic. Daniel. What? I don't want us destroying each other. You already emptied our accounts. I was emotional. You were organized. She ignored that. We had good years. We did. Don't throw them away. I'm not. You are. I'm protecting what remains. She lowered her voice again. If you cooperate. There it is. What? The condition. She didn't answer. You only sound peaceful when you're asking me to surrender. The silence lasted several seconds. Then she whispered. This won't end well for you. The call disconnected. I looked at the screen. No insults. No tears. Just pressure. She'd moved from blaming me to trying to negotiate. She knew something had changed. That afternoon Robert stopped by. He carried a thick binder. I've begun organizing exhibits. So soon? I'd rather prepare early. He spread everything across the dining room table. Voice memo. Bank alerts. Screenshots. Email metadata. Transfer records. Settlement proposal. Authorization report. Every page had a numbered tab. I smiled. Looks impressive. It looks believable. He pointed toward the failed transfer. This stays in front. Why? Because it changes everything. How? Without this failed transaction. He tapped the page. Your case becomes an argument. And now? It's evidence. He closed the binder. We're no longer asking people to trust your version. We're asking them to read. I leaned back in my chair. For days I'd been running on adrenaline. Now something steadier replaced it. Confidence. Not because Melissa had been caught. Because the truth had begun speaking for itself. That evening I walked into my home office. An old filing cabinet stood against the wall. Inside were decades of documents. Insurance papers. Mortgage records. Retirement statements. Family photographs. Near the back I found the original investment agreement. Signed. Dated. Notarized. At the bottom. One sentence. All withdrawals exceeding $200,000 require written authorization from both account holders. I smiled. 20 years ago. I signed that document without giving it another thought. Today. It had become the strongest witness I owned. If you believe receipts matter more than rumors, stay with the last receipt, because the biggest lie hasn't been uncovered yet. I placed the original agreement into Robert's binder. Melissa thought she'd planned every detail. She had. Except for the one signature. The law refused to ignore. A week later, Melissa stopped asking me to settle. She started telling stories instead. The first one reached me through a neighbor. Mark called. Daniel. Morning. I thought you should know. I'm listening. Melissa says you ignored her for years. I stayed quiet. She says you cared more about spreadsheets than your marriage. What do you think? I don't know anymore. I understand. Mark sighed. People are talking. They usually do. She sounded convincing. So does anyone who's practiced. He didn't argue. I just wanted to hear your side. You will. When? When the documents finish speaking. After the call ended, I stood in the living room. The old grandfather clock ticked steadily. Each sound echoed through the quiet house. Melissa wasn't defending the money anymore. She was rewriting the marriage. That afternoon another email arrived. You know you weren't a good husband. No greeting. No signature. Only accusations. I forwarded it to Robert. Evidence. Nothing else. I refused to answer. 2 hours later Robert called. Good. What? You ignored it. I almost replied. I'm glad you didn't. What are you finding? I've subpoenaed financial disclosures. And? Something doesn't add up. I sat down. Tell me. The forms submitted by Melissa's attorney don't match the bank records. In what way? Several figures were edited. By mistake? I don't believe so. My heartbeat slowed. Can you prove it? I'm trying. What do you need? Every financial statement you still have. I kept everything. I knew you would. I'll scan them tonight. Perfect. After hanging up, I opened the filing cabinet again. Old folders. Tax returns. Insurance renewals. Mortgage statements. Then I found another folder. Anniversaries. I smiled despite myself. Inside were cards Melissa had written over 23 years. The first one simply read. Thank you for making me feel safe. Another. I couldn't imagine building a life with anyone else. Another. You're still my favorite place to come home to. My chest tightened. The paper carried the faint scent of old stationery. For one painful moment, I remembered the cabin we rented for our 10th anniversary. Melissa danced barefoot on the wooden porch because it started raining. She laughed until neither of us could breathe. That memory was real. No courtroom could erase it. No accusation could rewrite it. I gently closed the folder. Not every chapter deserved to be destroyed because the ending was ugly. That evening Emily came over again. She noticed the anniversary cards. I forgot these existed. So did I. She picked one up. She wrote these? Every one. Emily looked confused. This doesn't sound like the woman everyone's describing. It isn't. She slowly sat down. Melissa told Aunt Carol you never showed affection. I handed Emily another card. She read it quietly. Then another. Then another. Finally she whispered. These contradict everything. They're dated. They're handwritten. They're impossible to fake now. Emily looked at me. I think people deserve to see these. I shook my head. Not yet. Why? Because I'm not trying to embarrass her. What are you trying to do? Tell the truth. Emily smiled faintly. I finally understand the difference. The next morning Robert arrived carrying another binder. You were right. About what? The disclosure forms. He laid 2 copies side by side. They aren't identical. I leaned closer. One showed the original filing. The other had different asset values. When were these changed? After separation. Can they do that? They can amend filings. And this? This wasn't amended. What was it? Robert looked directly at me. It appears someone replaced supporting documents. I stared at the pages. So the numbers submitted to the court no longer matched the originals. I rubbed my forehead. Can we prove which came first? Robert smiled. Metadata. I laughed quietly. I never thought I'd love that word. You should. He opened his laptop. The PDF creation dates. He pointed carefully. Original. Then another file. Replacement. Several weeks apart. Different software. Different author ID. They changed it. They certainly didn't improve it. I leaned back. Melissa wasn't simply telling different stories anymore. Someone had begun altering paperwork. The stakes had changed. That afternoon my phone rang. It was Melissa. You've been digging. I've been organizing. Same thing. No. She sighed. You're trying to ruin me. I haven't spoken publicly. You've shown people documents. I've shown my attorney documents. Her voice softened. Another new tactic. You know. What? I was lonely. I stayed silent. You worked all the time. I worked 40 hours. You missed dinners. I missed 4 because of quarterly audits. You never listened. I did. No. She spoke slowly. You listened to numbers. I closed my eyes. Not because she hurt me. Because she was selecting tiny moments. And pretending they were an entire marriage. Melissa. What? Do you remember Maine? Silence. The lighthouse? More silence. You cried because the hotel lost our reservation. She didn't answer. I stayed awake all night finding another place. Nothing. Do you remember your mother's surgery? She remained quiet. I slept in a hospital chair for 3 nights. Still nothing. You remember those things. Finally she whispered. That isn't the point. It is exactly the point. The call ended. I sat there for several minutes. She wasn't denying the memories. She simply needed people to forget them. That evening Kevin appeared again. I owe you another apology. You've already apologized. Not enough. He looked exhausted. I asked Melissa about those anniversary cards. I frowned. You did? She said they never existed. I walked to the bookshelf. Pulled out the folder. Handed it to him. He slowly opened it. His eyes moved from one card to another. Then another. Each one signed in Melissa's handwriting. Each one dated. Each one full of affection. He finally looked up. She told me you forced her to write these. I almost laughed. Every anniversary for 23 years? He closed the folder. I don't think she knows what's true anymore. Maybe she does. What do you mean? Maybe the truth simply doesn't help her. Kevin nodded slowly. I don't think I can defend her anymore. You don't have to defend me either. I know. I'm just going to tell what I've seen. That's enough. After he left, I received an email from Robert. Subject: Accountant report received. I opened it immediately. The independent forensic accountant had reviewed every submitted financial disclosure. The conclusion was short. Several supporting schedules appear inconsistent with original banking records and warrant further examination. No accusations. No speculation. Only facts. Exactly what we needed. Robert called moments later. This changes our strategy. How? We're no longer responding. What are we doing? We're demonstrating. The difference? Responding argues. He paused. Demonstrating proves. I smiled. I like that better. So do judges. Before hanging up he added one sentence. The truth is becoming easier to organize than the lies. That night I walked through the hallway again. Family photographs still lined the wall. One picture stopped me. Melissa and I at our daughter's college graduation. Both of us smiling proudly. I touched the frame gently. The glass felt cool beneath my fingertips. A marriage can end. That doesn't mean every happy moment inside it was fake. Some memories remain honest. Even when people don't. I turned off the hallway light. For the first time since Melissa emptied our accounts. I wasn't wondering whether I could prove the truth. I was wondering how much of her story would survive once every document was finally placed beside it. 2 days later, the answer finally arrived. Not from Melissa. From Robert. Daniel. You found the reason. I believe we did. I sat at the dining room table. What is it? I need you to stay calm. I've had plenty of practice. He opened a thick file. I hired a forensic accountant. You mentioned that. The report came back this morning. And? Robert slid the first page across the table. Melissa has over $400,000 in personal debt. I stared at him. That's impossible. I wish it were. For what? He turned another page. Credit cards. Another. Private loans. Another. Cash advances. Then another. Online gambling. The room became silent. No. Robert nodded slowly. Almost all of it accumulated during the last 3 years. I never saw any statements. You weren't supposed to. He handed me another folder. She rented a private mailbox. My heartbeat slowed. So the bills never came here. Exactly. I leaned back. The leather chair creaked softly beneath me. For weeks I'd been asking one question. Why? Now I had my answer. She hadn't emptied our accounts because she wanted freedom. She emptied them because she was drowning. She needed money. Robert nodded. Immediately. I looked out the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Melissa always loved rainy afternoons. She'd sit on the porch reading novels while I grilled dinner. For one painful second, I remembered thinking I knew everything about her. I hadn't known anything. Robert quietly interrupted my thoughts. There's more. There always is. He placed another document in front of me. A casino reward statement. Months of activity. Frequent visits. Large losses. My throat tightened. She told me she was visiting her sister. Robert remained silent. I believed her. I know. I even filled her gas tank before those trips. I know. There is a different kind of heartbreak when old memories suddenly change shape. You realize the kindness you offered was helping someone deceive you. I closed the folder. I'm not angry. Robert looked surprised. What are you? Sad. He nodded. That's usually what comes after the truth. That afternoon my phone rang. It was Kevin. Daniel. Hi. I found something. I'm listening. I was helping Melissa move. I waited. There were storage boxes. And? I accidentally opened one. What did you find? He swallowed hard. Casino receipts. I closed my eyes. I know. You already knew? My attorney found them. Kevin sounded exhausted. I defended her. You defended your sister. No. He sighed. I defended a lie. You didn't know. I should have. There was a long pause. Then he spoke quietly. She asked me to throw the boxes away. Did you? No. What did you do? I photographed everything. A small smile crossed my face. Good. I've already emailed the pictures. To who? You. My phone buzzed immediately. 47 photographs. Receipts. Membership cards. ATM withdrawals. Dates. Times. Every image fit perfectly beside the bank transfers. I immediately forwarded the entire folder to Robert. Evidence. Nothing more. That evening Emily stopped by. She looked worried. I heard about the debt. Kevin called you? He did. She sat across from me. I don't understand. Neither do I. You two made good money. We did. So why? I shook my head. I think she believed one big win would fix every loss. Emily stared into her coffee. My heart breaks for both of you. So does mine. She reached across the table. I judged you. I remember. I thought this was just a bitter divorce. It isn't. She squeezed my hand. I know that now. Before leaving she said something I hadn't expected. If anyone asks me what happened. I looked up. I'm telling the truth. That meant more than she realized. The next morning Robert called again. I need you downtown. Now? Yes. What's happened? The financial advisor wants to meet. An hour later we sat inside a quiet office overlooking the city. Across from us sat Allison Reed. She managed several of our investment accounts. She looked uncomfortable. Mr. Carter. Good morning. I owe you an apology. For what? I believed Mrs. Carter. I nodded. She told me you planned to hide assets. And? I almost helped accelerate several transfers. What stopped you? She opened a notebook. Procedure. She pointed toward one page. I requested additional documentation. And? Mrs. Carter became angry. Robert leaned forward. How angry? She demanded I bypass internal review. What did you say? I refused. Allison opened another folder. I documented every conversation. My pulse quickened. You kept notes? Detailed notes. She slid them toward Robert. I thought they might become important. He smiled. They already are. Allison hesitated. There's something else. What? Mrs. Carter said something strange. Robert looked up. What exactly? Allison read directly from her notes. He never checks the old paperwork. Silence. I almost laughed. Melissa thought I had forgotten the original investment agreement. The one requiring 2 signatures. The one sitting safely inside Robert's evidence binder. She hadn't just missed a signature. She assumed I'd forgotten it existed. After the meeting, Robert walked beside me toward the parking garage. This case keeps getting stronger. I don't want revenge. I know. I just want the truth. He smiled. The truth is becoming very expensive for her. That afternoon another email arrived from Melissa. Let's settle before court. Attached was a revised proposal. This time she wanted less. Much less. I forwarded it to Robert. He called within minutes. Notice anything? She suddenly became reasonable. Exactly. Why now? Because someone who's confident doesn't negotiate downward every week. I smiled. So she's nervous. I believe so. What should I do? The same thing you've done since day one. What? Nothing. That evening Mark knocked on my front door again. I owe you one. You don't owe me anything. I repeated Melissa's story. I know. I shouldn't have. He looked embarrassed. Kevin showed me some of the receipts. I nodded. I had no idea. Most people didn't. Mark sighed. She made it sound like you abandoned her. I never stopped coming home. I know that now. He looked toward the hallway. I remember you remodeling this entire house because she wanted a bigger kitchen. I smiled faintly. I remember too. I guess people don't usually spend 6 months building something for someone they don't love. No. They don't. Mark shook my hand. I'll correct anyone repeating those rumors. You don't have to defend me. I'm defending the truth. That simple sentence stayed with me long after he left. Late that night Robert sent one final message. Listen to the attached voicemail. I pressed play. Melissa's voice filled the room. I'll have everything transferred before he notices. Another woman laughed. What if he checks? He won't. Melissa laughed too. He trusts me. The recording ended. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt something much heavier. Trust had been the tool she counted on most. Not love. Not marriage. Trust. I placed the phone face down on the table. For weeks I had wondered whether patience would matter. Now I knew. Every receipt. Every document. Every saved email. Every ignored argument. Every backup. Every voice memo. They weren't acts of revenge. They were quiet steps toward justice. And for the first time since Melissa emptied our accounts, I realized she hadn't lost because she missed one signature. She was losing because she underestimated the value of one honest record after another. The morning of the hearing arrived without a single cloud in the sky. I stood in my bedroom tying the same blue tie Melissa had given me on our 20th anniversary. For a moment, My hand stopped. Then I finished the knot anyway. Some memories didn't deserve to be destroyed. Only accepted. My phone rang. Robert. Ready? I think so. Nervous? A little. Good. Why? Nervous people tell the truth. I smiled. And liars? They worry about remembering their stories. We met outside the courthouse. Robert carried one leather briefcase. Everything we'd gathered for weeks fit inside it. Voice memo. Screenshots. Bank logs. Email metadata. Original investment agreement. Casino receipts. The voicemail. Every piece had its place. We don't need drama today. I know. We need documents. I've learned that. He nodded. Let's go. The courthouse lobby buzzed quietly. Attorneys crossed the marble floor carrying stacks of files. Families whispered on wooden benches. No one paid attention to us. That was fine. Truth doesn't need an audience. Melissa stood outside the courtroom with her attorney. She looked perfectly composed. New suit. Perfect hair. Calm smile. She glanced toward me. So. You still have time. For what? To settle. I've already chosen. What? The truth. She smiled politely. You're making this harder than it has to be. I'm not the one who emptied our accounts. Her attorney quietly guided her inside. Robert looked at me. Notice something? What? She's still trying to negotiate. Even now. That usually means confidence is fading. The courtroom doors opened. We took our seats. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then sat. The hearing began. Melissa's attorney rose first. Your Honor. The judge nodded. My client acted to protect herself after years of financial control. Melissa lowered her eyes. The performance had started. Mr. Carter restricted access to marital funds. He dictated household spending. He forced Mrs. Carter into financial dependence. The attorney sat. Robert stood calmly. We agree this case concerns financial control. The judge looked toward him. But not by my client. He placed the first exhibit before the court. My client recorded this voice memo immediately after discovering the transfers. The recording played quietly. My own voice filled the room. I did not authorize these transactions. Robert stopped the recording. No further explanation is necessary. He introduced the bank alerts. Every timestamp. Every screenshot. Every login notification. One after another. No speeches. Only records. Melissa remained perfectly still. Robert called Laura Mitchell first. She walked confidently to the witness stand. Ms. Mitchell. Good morning. Were these transfers processed through your institution? They were. Were all of them completed? No. Why not? One required dual written authorization. Robert handed her the original investment agreement. Can you identify this? Yes. What does it require? She read directly from the document. All withdrawals exceeding $200,000 require written authorization from both account holders. Robert nodded. Was that authorization provided? No. Can electronic approval replace it? No. Could anyone at the bank override it? No. Melissa's attorney stood. Isn't this simply a technical issue? Laura answered calmly. No. What is it? A legal requirement. No further questions. She stepped down. Robert looked toward the judge. The next witness. Allison Reed approached. She adjusted the microphone. Ms. Reed. Yes. Did Mrs. Carter request accelerated transfers? She did. How did she respond when internal review was required? She became impatient. Did you document that? I documented every conversation. Robert handed the notebook to the judge. One entry, please. Allison read quietly. He never checks the old paperwork. The courtroom fell silent. Robert asked one more question. Who made that statement? Melissa Carter. She stepped down. Melissa looked toward her attorney. For the first time. She didn't look confident. Robert called Kevin next. He walked slowly to the witness stand. You originally supported your sister. I did. What changed? I saw the financial records. What else? I found casino receipts. Did you destroy them as requested? No. What did you do? I photographed every one. Robert displayed the photographs. Dates. Withdrawals. Rewards cards. Matching transaction times. Everything lined up perfectly. Melissa's attorney stood. Mr. Harris. Yes? You're angry with your sister. Kevin shook his head. I'm disappointed. That's not my question. It's the truthful answer. No further questions. Next came Emily. My sister looked nervous. Robert smiled reassuringly. Did you initially believe Mrs. Carter? Yes. What changed? The documents. Specifically? The transfer records. The anniversary letters. The financial statements. She looked toward the judge. I stopped believing stories once I saw evidence. She stepped down. Robert returned to counsel table. Then looked toward me. We have one final exhibit. He connected a small speaker. The voicemail began. Melissa's voice echoed softly through the courtroom. I'll have everything transferred before he notices. Another woman laughed. What if he checks? Melissa answered immediately. He won't. A pause. He trusts me. Robert stopped the recording. No commentary. No dramatic speech. Only silence. The judge slowly reviewed the transcript. Then looked toward Melissa. Mrs. Carter. Melissa stood. Her voice remained steady. I made mistakes. The judge waited. I panicked. No one interrupted. I believed the marriage was over. The judge folded her hands. Did you transfer marital assets without your husband's authorization? Melissa hesitated. Yes. Did you attempt to transfer funds requiring dual written authorization? Another pause. Yes. Did you possess that authorization? Melissa looked down. No. Her attorney placed a hand on the table. He didn't speak. There was nothing left to argue. The judge turned toward Robert. Counsel. Robert stood one final time. My client isn't asking the court for revenge. He looked briefly toward me. He's asking for accountability. Then he sat down. The judge reviewed every exhibit again. The sound of turning pages filled the courtroom. It seemed louder than every accusation we'd heard over the past weeks. Finally she began speaking. The documentary evidence establishes a clear pattern. She signed the first order. The attempted transfer from the dual signature investment account is declared invalid. Another signature. Funds associated with that account shall remain protected. Another signature. The court further finds that substantial marital assets were transferred without proper authorization. She looked toward Melissa. Those assets are subject to immediate accounting and equitable recovery. Another signature. The evidence concerning altered financial disclosures and disputed authorizations is referred for additional civil review. She closed the file. Mr. Carter. Yes, Your Honor. The court appreciates the thorough preservation of evidence presented in this matter. I nodded. Thank you. The hearing was over. No applause. No shouting. No celebration. Just quiet. Melissa remained seated. She didn't look at me. She looked at the stack of documents that had undone every story she'd told. Robert closed his briefcase. One missing signature. I smiled faintly. And hundreds of honest records. He nodded. Exactly. As we walked toward the courtroom doors, Robert stopped beside me. You know what really won today? What? Not the missing signature. I looked at him. Your patience. He smiled. If you believe truth and justice always leave a paper trail, stay with the last receipt, because the final chapter isn't about getting even. It's about walking away with your dignity intact. The courthouse doors closed behind us. For the first time in weeks. I took a full breath. The cool morning air filled my lungs. It felt lighter than it had in a very long time. Robert stood beside me. You okay? I nodded. I think so. You don't sound convinced. I've spent so many weeks preparing for today. And now? I don't quite know what comes next. He smiled. That's the best problem you've had in a while. I laughed. I suppose it is. We walked slowly down the courthouse steps. Neither of us spoke for a minute. There was nothing left to argue. Nothing left to prove. The truth had already done its work. Robert stopped beside his car. I received another call. Already? From the bank. What did they say? The court orders are already being processed. So the frozen investment account stays protected. And the transferred funds? Recovery proceedings begin immediately. I let out a long breath. It finally feels real. It is. He extended his hand. You earned this. I shook it firmly. No. He looked puzzled. We earned it. Robert smiled. I'll accept that. Before getting into his car, he added one last sentence. You never once let emotion replace evidence. I almost did. But you didn't. He drove away. I stood alone for a moment. The courthouse looked smaller now. Almost ordinary. Funny how fear can make buildings seem enormous. My phone buzzed. Emily. How did it go? We won. She started crying. I knew you would. You didn't. She laughed through her tears. No. I didn't. But I hoped. I'll take hope. I'm proud of you. For what? You never became the man Melissa kept describing. Her words stayed with me. Because that had quietly become my biggest goal. Not winning. Remaining myself. When I arrived home, Mark was waiting on my porch. He stood as I walked up the driveway. I've been watching for your car. I figured. Well? The judge ruled. And? The truth won. He smiled broadly. I never should have doubted you. You doubted what you were told. I still should have asked more questions. I unlocked the front door. You want some coffee? I'd like that. We sat in the kitchen. The same kitchen where Melissa had calmly told me she'd emptied our bank accounts. The room felt different now. Not because the cabinets had changed. Because the fear was gone. Mark looked around. I remember helping you remodel this place. So do I. You built every cabinet yourself. I had good motivation. He smiled. Melissa picked the colors. She did. He grew quiet. I guess not every memory has to become ugly. No. It doesn't. He nodded. I like that. After he left, I walked upstairs. Our bedroom no longer felt like a place waiting for someone to return. It simply felt like a room. I opened the top dresser drawer. Inside lay my wedding ring. I had taken it off before court. Not out of anger. Out of acceptance. I picked it up. The gold caught the afternoon sunlight. For a moment, memories rushed back. Our wedding. Buying our first home. Late-night talks about retirement. Vacations. Birthdays. Ordinary Tuesdays. Those moments had been real. The ending didn't erase them. I placed the ring gently inside a small wooden box. Then closed the lid. Not thrown away. Not displayed. Simply put to rest. Some chapters deserve respect. Even when they end painfully. A week later, Robert called again. I've got good news. I'm listening. The recovery process moved faster than expected. It did? Most of the transferred funds have already been frozen. And the rest? Investigators traced the remaining transfers. I leaned back in my chair. So there won't be another surprise. I don't expect one. What about the altered financial disclosures? They're under separate review. I nodded. I appreciate everything you've done. You made my job easy. I handed you a mountain of paperwork. You handed me organized evidence. He laughed softly. Attorneys dream about clients like you. I'll try not to make that a habit. I hope you don't. We both laughed. After the call ended, I walked outside. The backyard looked exactly as it always had. Fresh-cut grass. The old maple tree. The wooden bench I'd built years ago. I sat down. A gentle breeze moved through the branches. The air carried the faint scent of freshly mowed lawns. It reminded me of Saturday mornings. Before everything fell apart. For the first time. That memory didn't hurt. It simply belonged to another season of my life. Later that afternoon, Kevin knocked on my door. I thought I'd stop by. I'm glad you did. He looked uncomfortable. I talked to Melissa. I waited. She finally admitted she knew about the dual signature requirement. I wasn't surprised. What else? She thought you'd forgotten. I smiled faintly. So did I. Kevin looked confused. What? I honestly forgot about it. You did? Until Robert found the paperwork. He shook his head. It's strange. What is? The one thing she overlooked. Was the one thing neither of you remembered. I laughed quietly. Life has a sense of humor. Kevin nodded. I wanted to thank you. For what? You never tried to turn me against my sister. She's still your sister. I know. And she's responsible for her own choices. He extended his hand. I hope we can still be family. I shook it. I'd like that. After he left, Emily arrived carrying a pie. I made too much. You always do. She smiled. I also wanted to celebrate. We sat on the back porch. The evening sun painted the yard in warm shades of gold. You know, she said, I kept thinking victory would feel louder. I thought so too. But it doesn't. No. What does it feel like? I looked across the yard. Quiet. She smiled. I think quiet sounds wonderful. It is. We ate pie and watched the sun slowly disappear behind the trees. No lawyers. No accusations. No bank alerts. Just peace. A few days later, I received one final envelope from the bank. Inside was a confirmation letter. Every protected account had been restored under the court's orders. The investment account remained exactly where it belonged. Untouched. I placed the letter inside my filing cabinet, right beside the original dual signature agreement. Then I closed the drawer. Some documents protect money. Others protect dignity. That folder had done both. People have asked me whether I hate Melissa. The answer surprises them. I don't. Hate would keep me connected to the worst chapter of my life. I refuse to live there. Do I regret trusting her? No. Trust wasn't my mistake. Breaking that trust was hers. There's an important difference. Looking back now, I realize the missing signature didn't save me by itself. It was everything that came after. The voice memo I recorded before panic took over. The screenshots I captured before anything could disappear. The fraud alerts. The backed up emails. The saved statements. The quiet decision to answer accusations with records instead of anger. One honest step after another. That's what changed the outcome. Justice rarely arrives because of one dramatic moment. More often, it arrives because ordinary people keep careful records while everyone else is making noise. Money can be earned again. Property can be recovered. Even reputations can heal. But integrity is different. You either protect it every day, or you slowly trade it away. I nearly lost my savings. I nearly lost my marriage. I nearly lost friendships built over decades. But I never lost myself. And in the end, that became the greatest victory of all. If you've ever faced betrayal, financial deception, or had to rebuild your life after someone broke your trust, I'd genuinely like to hear your story in the comments. Your experience may remind someone else that they're not alone, and that patience, preparation, and truth still matter. And if stories like this remind you that evidence will always outlast deception, be sure to subscribe to The Last Receipt. Because the strongest revenge isn't taking everything back. It's walking away with your character, your dignity, and the truth still carrying your signature.